Of course. And we are live. So, welcome to episode 102 of An American Werewolf in New Jersey. I am the American Werewolf. In the house tonight, we've got Bilby Wan Kenobi. Coming out of retirement to, defend us from some sand people and that sort of nonsense.
And coming to a desert near you real soon.
That's exactly right. Brown cloak and all.
Well, they're doing it as smart as you, Mike, because they're not premiering on May 4th either. I don't know why.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. So, as usual, yeah, all right. So, so I've got Eric from Hey Internet Eric here.
My pleasure.
And, good to have you on board again. And we've got, for the first time, we've got the Goraphobe. And so this is a movie that has absolutely zero gore, so it's safe enough for him to show up today, and it's all good. So welcome aboard. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Love Star Wars too. Not just gore. There's more to gore than gore.
Indeed. So, it's no secret that I'm no fan of the way franchise. I have nothing against franchises, but I sort of have been, pretty vocal about how franchises have sort of taken over everything. Mm-hmm. And last week when I did the Chronicle drop, and I dropped it on Monday, I went through the top 10 franchises, and it's like the Fast and the Furious are in the top 10, and like Harry Potter and Middle Earth, and I think James Bond was one of the more noteworthy ones. I think that was like number 6, and it had made like $7 billion or something like that over 60 years. It's the longest running franchise in movie history, starting from 1960 when when Connery took it on up until this last one. And this was as of January of last year. So I guess that last movie that they dropped with Daniel Craig wasn't a part of it yet. Number 3, I think, was Harry Potter or something like that at like 9 million. Star Wars was number 2 at 10 billion. They've made $10 billion out of Star Wars. And the number one, that's over the course of closing in on 45 years. Mm-hmm. So 45 years, about $10 billion they've made. The number one franchise in movie history is the MCU, which has had less than 15 years and has made a whopping $22 billion, more than double the number 2. Now, maybe you want to adjust that for current prices or whatever, okay? Because
is that adjusting Star Wars to taking $1977?
I didn't put it through an accounting course. I was listing what the numbers are.
How many movies does MCU have?
Oh God, it must be upwards of 20 now. It's got to be close to 20 now. But my point that I was making is that my complaint is that with these franchises now, especially with the MCU and Disney sort of catching up on this, every 6 weeks there's a new drop. Mm-hmm. So if you're wondering why there's a new drop every 6 weeks and they're paying absolutely no attention to quality control, check the numbers. Mm-hmm. They're making billions and billions and billions, and they're dropping it so fast that people aren't really taking the time to process any of it, because by the time you're like, what the hell did I just watch 6 weeks or 8 weeks later, they've hit you with the next thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you can't keep up with it all. However,
it reminds me of 1950s B movies, where every Saturday there was just another movie that was just popcorn ready. You saw the guy in the rubber suit and you moved on to the next one. That's what MCU has become.
Yeah, it's tarantulas and, all these different things and the nuclear scares and that sort of stuff. But that said, within each of maybe not Fast and Furious, but within most of those franchises, there are some real fucking gems in there. Mm-hmm. And that brings me to Star Wars. Which, I want to save it. If you guys are ready, we can get it going. Are we good?
Okay.
Good to go.
All right. at 9 years old when I first saw this, and I saw it at a drive-in theater because that was, I've said this many times, that was the local cinema house about 2 miles down from my parents' house. So every Friday, that was our thing. And so I saw A New Hope in the drive-in with that chintzy little speaker you hung in on the inside of the driver's side window, and I loved it. But now I wasn't as fanatical as some people have been, and that's what I want to get into. I had never seen anything like it before, though. Clearly, it borrows heavily from Kurosawa and The Hidden Fortress, the story of these two peasants who go off into like the wilderness to find this reclusive samurai to help them rescue a kidnapped princess who's been kidnapped by bandits. And if you have a chance and you have HBO Max, The Hidden Fortress is playing right now on there with Toshiro Mifune, and it's probably one of the greatest movies of all time. But Star Wars at the age of 9 was just, I mean, you had space battles and, ships and hovercrafts and clearly cut villains and heroes, and it was obvious that everybody was who, and there were no sort of anti-heroes to it. And so for a 9-year-old, there was just this surface like sensory overload that was just fantastic. Looking at it as I did for the purposes of the show, and then I'll turn it over to you guys because I'm tired of talking. It's a bit of an iceberg. I looked at it that way, and that you're only seeing, watching this movie, about 20% or maybe 5 or 10%. And there's this huge amount of content, that's sort of underneath and context that you're not, sort of aware of much, very thankful to the series that came out that filled those sorts of things in. And I had a new respect for it. Watching it this time, which I hadn't for a while, bearing all that in mind and what 45 years has been, watching this series. And if anybody wants to jump in.
Yeah, oh God, I can't think of how young I was. I was probably around the same age when I saw it. And again, there's something for everything, or something for everyone in this movie. Not just kids, because kids, they love the blasters, the spaceships, the creatures, all that kind of stuff. And then what you can do is when you grow as an adult and you still watch this, you can get into the characters and you can grow to love them. Who here doesn't love Han Solo? You thought he was cool as a kid, because he had a blaster gun and
he was.
And a Wookiee sidekick, and he was the only one that could understand Chewie and all that stuff. But as you grow older, you realize that there's a lot more to this guy. You can realize that he does make that hero's rescue at the end that you might not have picked up as a kid. Because you don't realize he is literally just in it for the money, and then he realizes that he comes back and saves the day. There's just so many nuances. You realize how basically as a kid I didn't pick up that Leia was probably the most badass character of them all. She saves their butts how many times over the franchise stuff, but she's the one that gets them out of the firefight, and you realize how strong of a character she is. So it's just cool stuff you can see as a kid, and then different stuff you see as an adult.
Yeah, and there's a lot of parallels. I think I kind of see Han Solo as kind of like a Snake Plissken type character. You know what I mean? There's in my opinion, there's a lot of parallels there. Star Wars is just a great story. I seen it in '78 when I was about 5. On one hand, you've got a story about redemption. Once you get through the whole trilogy, a story about redemption of a great man that went bad. On the other side, you got a young boy that finds out that his dad is still alive eventually. And so it's like a father-son story, a son looking for his father, and a father looking to be redeemed to find the man he was once before. That's only one part.
Yep.
There's several other parts.
Yeah, I saw it when I was 9 too, and it blew me away. And I had 4 months of anticipation because I remember reading the Time Magazine review of it and going, I really want to see this movie in May. But when I was growing up, we didn't have a ton of cash, so going to the movies was some special thing, and couldn't convince my mom to take me until August. And when I finally saw it, it was all that. It was that sensory overload. But I think all that content that Eric was talking about was there, and I think took it in as well, because being 9, you're so fresh and open. I had nothing to compare it to. I wasn't sitting there going, "Oh, I've seen that better in such and such movie," or "That's not really good." It just all went inside me. It was like I was like an open vessel, and Star Wars just filled me up. And over the course of the few weeks and months after, I started reading all the like Fangoria and Famous Monsters magazines, and just digesting all of it. And then you start reading about how Lucas grabbed from Flash Gordon, he grabbed from Westerns, he grabbed from Kurosawa, obviously. There was the World War II fighter race dog fights, all that stuff.
It's I mean, and the reason I think that there's really nothing to, you can say, well, they did it better over here, is because nobody had ever put all those things together. So in that sense, he had taken all these little bits and pieces, but created something wholly original. And at the same time, I just thought it was absolutely crazy that, in a sense, although I don't know the entire backstory, and maybe some of you do, that he essentially started the series in the middle.
Yes.
He started it in the middle, and that's just an absolute ballsy fucking, I mean, those are like big fucking grapefruits, man.
He had the whole arc, the whole big story. It's kind of like Tolkien. He had the whole arc ready to go, but when he started actually putting it pen to paper, he saw that he had to shrink it down, and the best part of that arc was episode 4.
And he wasn't sure that he was going to be able to finish it. If you remember, when Star Wars first came out, there was no episode 4. It was just Star Wars.
That's true.
Yeah. It was just Star. It was. I don't even think, was it. Well, I guess it was called A New Hope, but it was called Star Wars. I mean, when you saw it on the marquee, it was just called Star Wars. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
No one knew. No one knew it would be successful. I think they all thought it was going to be a joke. I mean, Walter Matthau and a bunch of other actors had test screened for it and walked away from it saying it's ridiculous, a giant, walking carpet and all these weird creatures. A bunch of them didn't want to do it. Alec Guinness didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
But I guess he needed the cash.
Cushing didn't want to do it either.
Yeah, Cushing didn't want to do it either.
Oh, really? I had no idea. Okay. Well,
he didn't wear shoes because the boots they had for him didn't fit, so he had to run around barefoot. And he bitched the whole time, I guess.
That's awesome.
I mean, because there's not a huge market, there's not a huge foundation of science fiction necessarily before this, at least in terms of outer space.
Well, not big budget. There was plenty of that. Again, the 50s and 60s.
But like it came from outer space, with like James Arness, or like The Day the Earth Stood Still might be your closest. But in terms of adventures, on other planets, and things like that, there wasn't anything like that to compare it to. Although when
it came out, there was a movie called Silent Running with Bruce Dern that a lot of people accused Lucas of ripping off, even though he had been working on Star Wars long before that. But that was where we first saw droids and, ships in outer space. And it's actually a really good movie if you've never seen it.
Okay. We got Gretchen Dar saying hey to everybody. So, hey, Gretchen, thanks for stopping in. Let's see. Huh?
That's my fiance.
Oh, hey. Oh, thanks for stopping in. Very cool. Very cool. Now, one of the things that I was catching was that a lot of these effects still hold up.
Yes.
I mean, they've been cleaned up a little bit, with, digital enhancement and all these sorts of things. But, I mean, it's got the, that initial scene where you see that Star Destroyer. I mean, it's not fancy, but it doesn't have that CGI that the prequels had. That just kind of, it looked this glossy. It had this gritty, kind of dirty look, when the stormtroopers are getting ready to, attack that ship, and the rebel soldiers are, waiting there for the last stand, and the walls are just, they've got that gray. They're supposed to be white, but you can tell that they're just dingy looking. It's got this great fucking feel to it that I thought was I'm like, wow, that's so cool.
The
Yeah,
Star
all the other
Destroyer
space
looks good.
movies like Logan's Run. Everything is so clean and everyone's wearing the same outfits. And this totally broke that mold where they're like space, but not communist space. Like there's different things going on.
I remember when I saw something similar a couple of years later in Ridley Scott's Alien, that the Nostromo had that grimy, dirty kind of look. You know, you could probably smell the machine oil, you know, and all those different things. They kept that. And then, you know, slowly, you know, you started to get to the television series like Battlestar Galactica and, you know, Buck Rogers and all. And, you know, everything just kind of got cleaned up.
Yeah, the look of the Star Destroyer is great because if you think about it, it looks so cold. You just feel the way it looks. Like even on the inside, it's not, you know, it just looks so cold and empty, which fits the Empire. The more you watch it, the way it looks is perfect.
Yep.
And the size of it. Like you had just never, and it just keeps from the bottom, and you're like, holy shit! Like what the hell is? And you know, it's later mocked by Mel Brooks.
Yeah,
you know, when he does Spaceballs, you know, and it's like three
if
times.
I watched this thing, the whole movie would be over. Yeah.
But you know, you start to get introduced to, you know, some of the characters. You get introduced to 3PO and R2, and I think 3PO was my first introduction to neuroticism because he's just so fucking negative.
Yep.
Holy shit! I mean, he's just like, you know, constantly having this existential crisis, you know, and you had never seen anything like that before, and it's funny, but at the same time, like I could watch it now, and I'm like, holy shit, he's just so fucking neurotic, you know, and like annoying at the same time. But then
bitching all the time, bitching constantly.
Oh yeah, he was ready. They were going to die like at any particular second, and he was going to be melted down, and you know, he was just the downer of, you know,
perfect Howard.
Yeah, they've got this great yin and yang that you know, R2's got like the, you know, the sort of, you know, the chipper, you know, sort of personality, although you never understand a damn thing that he's saying, but he communicates somehow effectively through the bells and whistles, and it's this weird sort of dialogue that, you know, is one-sided for us, but somehow you manage to understand it.
Yeah, and that's what's great is it's funny, you know, saying this, they're two droids, they work well together. Because of how neurotic and, you know, chicken shit 3PO is, you can kind of figure out like how frustrated R2 is talking to him, because there's times when, you know, the beeps and the whistles, they're louder, you know, they're more high pitched, they're faster, so you can put two and two together. He's basically telling him to shut the fuck up. We got stuff to do. You know what I mean? And it's good writing too, because lots of times 3PO will tell him like watch his language and stuff like that. So it's really funny stuff.
Yeah, total Laurel and Hardy. And the big thing about C-3PO is he's always ready to throw R2 under the bus at any moment. Anytime something goes wrong, there's C-3PO. I told him not to go out in the desert. I told him not to do this. Like, it's so hilarious.
Because it's funny, but go ahead, Garfo.
Oh, I was gonna say he's kind of like that narc, you know what I mean? That's your friend over here, but as soon as he gets in trouble, he's like. You know?
It's him.
Yeah, you know, Mike. You worked in school, Mike. It's like, you know, when the class is going crazy and you got the one guy saying, you know, I was good, I was being good, you know, that type of stuff.
Yeah. He's got his hand up for the whole fucking 85 minutes. Put your fucking hand down. Somehow he's worse than the 19 other fucking kids that are, you know, you're like, Jesus Christ, really? Your mother makes sure you go to school every fucking day. Yeah, I believe that. All right. So, I mean, the practical effects are holding up. R2 gets his mission, you know, and he's dedicated. You sort of get your first look at, you get this glancing sort of look at Leia. They land on the planet. And then that was the first time I sort of, for the purposes of this movie, this review, noticed the music. Not the first time I've noticed the music, but just how effective it was. You know, in communicating either a light tone or a heavy tone. That was what, John Williams?
John Williams, yeah.
John Williams.
John Williams.
That's a hell of a score. And I remember when we did our top 5 scores, I think Ryan said he just would have done all Star Wars movies. You know, I thought that was a bit much, but this was actually quite effective.
Yes.
You know, the Jawas, and then you know, they end up getting jumped, and then you know that kind of introduces you to Luke. You know, who's sort of, you know, living the farm boy life out there. It's a different photo from what he's doing, but I mean, it's the beginning of a fantastic character arc for this guy. You know, and you just, you know, you have, there's no way of knowing, you know, where the story is going to go, but it's just so damn good, you know, that this farm guy, you know, it has this story that's yet to be unfolded, you know, and it keeps going. It's good stuff.
Yeah, he's the typical kid who he's stuck in a rut. He's tired of working for his aunt and uncle on the farm. He wants to, you know, people pick on him. They say he's kind of whiny. I think it's kind of justified. You know what I mean? He's supposed to be, what, 17, 18? He doesn't want to hang out with his aunt and uncle. He wants to go party with his friends, go do what a 17, 18-year-old boy wants to do. And it's really cool seeing how, like you said, the arc, how he changes, because once the Empire gets involved, he's got nothing left. So, you know, I might as well go, you know, help these guys. And it's just it's cool, even in just this film alone, seeing how he grows from beginning to end.
He wants to join the Academy.
Yeah, he wants to fight for the Empire, but it's the only way of getting out, you know, join the military and get out of that rural sort of go nowhere.
Yeah, where he's sort of trapped, and like Uncle Owen kind of comes off as a dick, but at the same time, you know, you figure that Uncle Owen is trying, and they'll probably get into this a bit with the Kenobi series coming up. He's trying to keep him there to protect him. You know, because I'm sure, you know, when he was dropped off there as a child, Obi-Wan explained, you know, you can't let this kid leave. You know, he has to stay here. But everything happens, you know, with this
around at the Empire is Skywalker, but no one knows that except for Uncle Owen.
Yeah, exactly. But he's got no logical reason for continuing to keep him there. So, like, the timing of everything is sort of perfect. Like, his setup to leave is perfect for the time for the droids to show up to bring Obi-Wan back into the desert, because there's no more excuse to keep him there. Somebody's going to have to sit him down and have this conversation with him. Obviously, you would want to have it with his aunt and uncle still alive, but he's old enough now that someone's going to have to tell him the truth. And unfortunately, you know, it happens, you know, after the fact.
There's a great deleted scene that was there was a great deleted scene that was part of the original Marvel adaptation too, where he's hanging out with his friends and they actually watch the battle going on above them. And they're like, "What's going on?" And then it goes into his buddy Biggs leaving for the Academy, and that was like the last straw of, you know, the last thing that would ever keep him at home was his best friend.
Because they've dropped him. Go ahead, Garfield. You were saying something.
Oh no, I was just saying that his Uncle Owen he got to that certain point where he got to that certain age, so he didn't have an excuse. So then his Uncle Owen started using guilt, like I need you. I don't have anyone else to help me.
Yeah.
And what's good is there's one shot that Lucas does. It's Aunt Beru just gives Uncle Owen that look, like you know. There's already so much mystery in this initial movie. And you know, like with repeated watchings, you might not see that look that she gives us. She literally just looks with her eyes and then goes back to eating. There's more to this story than we know.
He leaned on that move way too much in the prequels, but in this movie, it's very, very subtle and very good. And you're right. This movie, a lot of the characters and a lot of the motives are shrouded in mystery, which makes this movie a lot better than the fan service that comes along, where they're like, "We are going to spoon feed you every single detail that you ever wanted to hear right now. Here you are." Instead, we were all making it up in our own heads as we were watching it.
Yeah. And they've done, I guess, they've done a passable job. You know, a lot of I didn't really appreciate most of the trilogies, but looking back on it now, we understand more of the context. You know, so they have provided it to us. Some things have been better than others. You know, there's no point in, you know, trying to put a rose on a pig or something like that, or whatever you call it.
Perfume on a pig.
Yeah, perfume on a pig or something like that. But for the purposes of this movie and to understand it, you know, I appreciate having that background now. You know, they get schwacked. That's basically it. And then, of course, they run into to Hal and Ben Kenobi out there. Oh, the one thing I wanted to talk is that sand people today are fucking scary as fuck.
Mm-hmm.
Holy shit. Even to, they're, you're like, what the hell is going on? I still remember that today. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, and there's something, as we talked about CGI before, about having, real people.
There's even Book of Boba Fett couldn't fuck him up.
I didn't see Book of Boba Fett. Is it? I've heard
it destroys almost every bit of mystery about Boba Fett, but it spends a lot of time with the sand people, and it doesn't really ruin them. It makes them better.
Oh, good.
Isn't that him trying to, like, he collabs with the Jawas or something like that?
Something like that. There's a whole lot of Jawa action going on in that show too.
Okay.
But again, mystery. You're not supposed to hang out with the Jawas.
Yeah, that's very true. They've overturned just about every rock here. And that's what happens when you just keep putting out series after series after series and giving everybody 6 to 8 episodes and multiple seasons. You sort of run, and that's the problem with all these franchises. You sort of run out of storyline.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, that's what's happened here. It's been 45 years, but, everybody's getting a show now because $10 billion.
Yeah, because the background that we invented in our heads when we were 9 years old, sitting there watching this movie, is 100 times better than anything that's ever going to be on Disney Plus, ever.
Yeah, pretty much. With the exception of what they did with the Clone Wars and Rebels, I really haven't been a fan, and Rogue One, which really had nothing to do with Disney Plus. I really haven't been a fan necessarily, and I did those something shitty episodes on the 1 through 3, so I wasn't necessarily
Rogue One didn't screw it up. That's for sure.
Yeah, and that's one of the great things. There's all this untapped material, and there could be so many different side stories that have absolutely nothing to do with the name Skywalker, that have nothing to do with the name Vader, that have nothing to do with Palpatine or Obi-Wan, that's just a completely organic story.
Yeah.
That's just about the people. All it is about the people trying to get that one disc to the rebel ship.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they just made what was also very interesting, a war movie that happened on the ground. I mean, you got a little bit of that at the end of Jedi with the Ewoks and, that kind of thing. But, I mean, you just got a real war movie out of that.
Yeah.
But
I
anyway.
didn't think we knew that there was an Emperor in New Hope, did we? I don't even think we even heard of him there.
Wait, what's this now?
I don't even think that in as far as the first one, as far as the New Hope goes,
right?
I don't even think the Emperor was even mentioned. When I seen that, I didn't realize until Empire Strikes Back there even was an Emperor.
Right. There's a passing reference or two that Vader makes about the Emperor, or I think Moff Tarkin might make. They may, like, between the two of them, there might be one or two passing references, but there's no emphasis on the Emperor. I feel like we've been talking for almost 30 minutes and we haven't talked about Vader yet, who just comes out as a stone cold killer, man.
Mm-hmm.
Vader is just like the angel of death, like descending on that ship. He strangles that one guy to death with his bare hands. He's like lifting him off the ground, trying to interrogate him.
One-handed.
One-handed strangle. He force chokes that other guy during the meeting when the guy makes some, snide remarks about the Force. He interrogates and probably tortures Leia, who he's not even aware, and that's what I was thinking. I'm like, oh my God, he's not even aware that he's torturing his own daughter.
Mm-hmm.
He's just a evil bastard. Man.
Yeah, he's a monster, and his look is great. Because what I love about it is the stormtroopers are all dressed in white, and this motherfucker it's just all in black. And like you said, like Angel of Death or whatever, he stands out and he looks intimidating just when he comes on screen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he doesn't have to do anything but fucking stand there as all this chaos is happening, and he looks scary just by standing there. And then once he speaks with James Earl Jones's voice, he means business. Very intimidating.
Yeah, and with that outfit, he seems about 6 inches taller than everybody. They hadn't got to the part in Hollywood where they've started to cast like the Schwarzenegger type, so he's not the big MCU sort of action figure-y kind of guy, but actually he was for the time,
right?
And he's an intimidating bastard. You can't see his eyes. You just hear that heavy breathing coming through the filtration system. One of the most effective villains there are out there. Anybody?
Yeah, he's fantastic, and like I said, I don't think we have the Imperial March until the second film, but it's just again.
Or if you got to go ahead, man.
I'm sorry. Is there anybody that can join you on Empire Strikes Back?
Yeah, well, I'll be in touch.
Cool.
Thanks, take care, man. Thanks for joining.
And but it's like I said, just the look of him, and then when he's finally in action, because what I love is he's not afraid to get involved in the action, because by the end of it, when he's in the TIE fighters shooting the rebels and stuff like that. But what I also like about him is he also knows how to follow orders, because it was when Moff Tarkin tells him to release the guy from the Force choke. He's just as you wish. He knows his ranking. And that's what's cool, is that makes you think about, where does Moff Tarkin fit in this? Because if Vader's taking orders from him and listening to him, where does this guy rank, when it comes to the Empire?
Ryan wanted me to mention this, that he was Peter Cushing, although apparently, I think according to you guys, he didn't want the role initially, had so much fun or enjoyed it enough, or maybe made enough money, or all three, that he was disappointed that he was destroyed at the end of the movie, because he wouldn't have mind coming back for Empire.
I'm sure once it made $1 billion across the world.
Yeah, he changed his mind.
Oh, it was fun. You couldn't wait to get out of there and get to the car. Come on.
Hey man, it's as a fan, how many times have you and I talked about Peter Cushing? And here he's just an evil bastard. I think one of the things that I appreciate about Vader now in retrospect, to go back to Vader real quick though, there's no ambiguity. Like that they had like with the Kylo Ren character.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Where he's teetering on the brink, he's uncertain. Mm-hmm. He's not sure, there's no internal conflict with him.
Movie,
yeah. And what's, by then is kind of an understandable thing, and hasn't necessarily been focused on for the entirety of all three movies.
Right.
You get to it a little bit, like by the end of the second movie, he wants to bring Luke over,
right?
To the dark side. He's not conflicted about, oh my God, what have I done? I mean, in his mind, he's still in the right place. It's Luke who's, making the mistake here, by opposing the Emperor.
Mm-hmm.
When we get to the third movie, I mean, and we'll get there, but I mean, eventually it's what he sees happening to Luke that drives him to, to finally act.
Mm-hmm.
It's a well-constructed arc for a villain, and it plays out across 3 movies instead of 3 minutes in the first act of one movie.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And they haven't done it right since. They haven't really done it right since then.
No.
With the First Order and everything like that. Mos Eisley. We get to Mos Eisley, and we get to the cantina scene.
One of my favorite scenes.
It was the baddest thing ever.
Just one of the absolute greats. Just fantastic stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We get introduced to Han. Question: does Han shoot first?
Hell yeah!
Absolutely.
Now, there was something though with special editions though where they made Grotto shoot first, and because I have these Blu-rays, and I went frame by frame, and on my version of my Blu-ray, it looks like Grotto shoots first.
They edited that. I have the DVD. It was a special edition. They did it, and they haven't done it since. They released the theatrical versions on DVD. They're having their conversation, and then Greedo says something, and then Han says his response like, "Yeah, I'd like to see you try," or whatever his line is, and
I
then
bet you would, yeah.
yeah, and then you see Greedo, and then boom, the explosion.
You see the scene where Han's pulling his blaster out surreptitiously under the table
Like a
while
gunslinger.
Greedo's
Yep.
talking about how he's, give me the money, you might live.
Yeah.
And he's just like, no. Bam.
Yeah.
Because my versions have that added in scene with Jabba.
Yeah.
Where they inserted Jabba into it's kind of unnecessary. It doesn't add anything to the story except that you've added Jabba into the movie. It doesn't add anything to the narrative or anything like that.
Originally, Jabba was just a fat guy.
I
think that blob thing was added on later, and then they retconned the first movie and that scene because they filmed that whole scene with a rotund humanoid in full costume. It wasn't like he was a stuntman. And then they did the CGI around it, which looks awful.
Yeah.
That would have been cool if you had just had a fat gangster.
Yeah.
A fat evil gangster, You also get your first look at Boba Fett. Right there. He's there in the background.
In the first one?
In my scene, because he's added
in the scene with Jabba,
scene. They added the Jabba scene, so they add Boba Fett in there as well. It doesn't add anything to the story.
I see your eyes rolling.
Yeah, here's the thing.
I want to pull my hair out, man.
Here's the thing. What is it? Because it must come from the novelization or the books or the comics or things like that makes Boba such a badass, because they don't really do anything with him. In the second movie, he in Empire, he's there a little bit, but it's clearly Vader doing all the capturing. And in the third movie, you're seeing him get knocked over into the pit.
Yeah, he's killed by accident.
To hear rabid Star Wars fans talk, Boba Fett's like the ultimate badass.
I think it's the look and the mystery, like we talked earlier. It's the mystery,
And as a 10-year-old kid, I got to see that cartoon of Boba Fett when they introduced him on the holiday special in 1977. There was a whole cartoon of Boba Fett, and he encounters, I guess it's Luke and Chewie, and they're looking for Han, and he screws them over, and it's a really, really cool Ralph Bakshi kind of animation.
Okay, yeah, all right. So you're saying so there's nothing that I've missed or no backstory that I've missed, with Boba Fett here or there or anywhere else except
not movie wise. No.
Yeah, because there are a shitload of books.
Right.
There are a shitload of books out there. I kept hearing
Disney made all the books, at least the expanded universe, made it all non-canon. It doesn't exist anymore officially, which again,
really?
This is off. The mouse sucks. Yes.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Once they took over with their first movie, because even Lucas said all of the books are canon in his universe, and then once The Force Awakens came out, Disney says nothing's canon except for anything that comes out after Force Awakens.
Holy shit!
Yeah.
Now they're slowly trying to pull some of that expanded universe stuff into the new Disney stuff, and it's not exactly how it should be. And we're all waiting for Admiral Thrawn, which was the villain after the Death Star, the big villain in the series of books. And they're hinting that he's going to show up, but I fear they're going to screw it up.
I don't understand why corporations do that when you have perfectly great narrative already established. And they're doing the same thing in the MCU.
Yeah.
They're just creating these narratives and these stories and these origins that have absolutely nothing to do with the Marvel canon. And like people that are like this guy Nerdrotic, he's like a comic book store owner. So he's lived his life in comic books. He's about our age.
Okay.
And he's like, what the hell are these people doing?
Yeah.
And now it's the same company, of course, doing it with Star Wars. It'd be one thing if you had crappy, stories. You're like, okay, well, let's just get rid of this. But you already have a fantastic baseline already established, and you're just sort of disregarding it. I don't know if it's for politics or the ESG
score. There's a limited number of people who can helm a big budget movie. And when you have that much money on the line, they're going to go with the sure thing. That's why they brought in Ruin Johnson. He's not a Star Wars fan. He just said, I'm going to do whatever I want. They brought in J.J. Abrams, who I love, but J.J. Abrams didn't do Star Wars. He did J.J. Abrams.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know what stars aligned to get Jon Favreau and his partner in there. They are real Star Wars fans. They know exactly what they're doing, and they're doing.
And Filoni.
Filoni. They're doing it exactly right.
Yeah.
And Disney's fighting them every step of the way because Kathleen Kennedy wants to do her own vision, and it's just they're going for the money and the short-term money gain, the easy answer, and not trusting the source material and not trusting real Star Wars fans to do it because there's a lot of money on the line.
We were talking about this, and about a week or so ago, I can't remember what show we were talking about though, and maybe it was just during the Hangout stream, where you constantly hear references from producers and writers where they're talking about get ready for the fanboy tears, and when you hear that from a writer or producer, that pretty much lets you know right away that like they don't love and they're not a fan of the content that they're writing and producing.
Exactly.
Right. But fan service can backfire too. A perfect example of that is this Sopranos movie, The Many Saints of Newark, which was all fan service the whole way through. None of it made any sense, but I guess they figured, oh, that's Carmela. Oh, there's Johnny Boy. It's like, no, don't do it that way.
If it's sprinkled in here and there, it's done well.
Hey, we got Walk the Cinema in here tonight. Hey, y'all, what's happening there, you two? How's it going? Hello down there in Atlanta. As far as I'm concerned, if I never saw another Mafia movie again, it would be too soon.
There should be a Star Wars Mafia movie, but a hardcore, real Mafia movie. They hinted at it with Solo because Crimson Dawn is a mafia organization, a multi-planet galactic mafia organization
run by Maul, right?
Right. We found out that behind the whole thing is Darth Maul, and the stage is set. They could do so much with that. Are they? Hell no, because they gotta jam stupid teenagers driving, mod cars around in Mos Espa. It's ridiculous.
And they're giving like every obscure. There's a bunch of other people that are getting new series now, like these fringe characters, and you're like, who? You're like, don't you remember from them? Like, no. Stop! I don't.
A lot of it's not going to see the light of day. It's going to fall apart. There was one talk of they were going to do an actual horror movie set on Hoth from Empire Strikes Back, involving the Wampas, the Yeti that capture Luke, and it was going to be a separate story, separate from what was going on with Han, just in that setting. And there would be, I guess, Wampas attacking you and some kind of mystery. And I don't know if it's even going to happen now because they have to do something easy and something for teens or tweens. And they're definitely going to screw it up again.
Well, yeah, you can't make a lunchbox out of that.
Right.
You can't make a lunchbox out of that.
I can't remember.
You can't take your 8-year-old kid to that.
Direct, but I thought it was a perfect choice. But I can't remember his name now, which I'm ashamed of.
I don't know, man. I don't know. Maybe we're just too old. Maybe we've outstayed our welcome. Maybe it's time to turn it. Maybe it's time to turn it over to the 12-year-olds.
Nope. The original Star Wars was not intended for 12-year-olds. That's the easy answer. Everyone says it's for kids. It wasn't. It was for fans of good storytelling.
Right. All of these, with the exception of Bond, I think 9 out of 10 of the franchises like Jurassic Park and Potter and Middle Earth, and what they're doing with Middle Earth, $250 million, and they're not even going to adapt Tolkien. They're completely rewriting the canon.
Yeah.
And Galadriel is a warrior in armor. She never fought. And Elrond is like some effeminate engineer or something like that. You know, I mean, they're not moving in this direction. And, you know, maybe people, if enough of us podcasters keep throwing sand in the wheels, you know, by the time we're like 500 years old, you know, it might ground to a halt, but I'm not betting my grandmother on it. You know,
but that just makes them react twitchily, and they go, "Oh, fanboys, let's throw this in here. Let's you know, satisfy the fanboys." The next thing you know, you've got creatures everywhere and nonsense. You know, it's there's no easy answer to this. You got to follow the Favreau lead, because he's the only one doing things correctly.
Yeah, but you know, you've got someone in charge who doesn't want that. They want
because
they
have
the
woke vision,
the woke vision, and the Laura Dern, and the the Last Jedi kind of thing.
I don't mind the wokeness if they just tell a good story, and then have that be part of it. Like, I never thought for a second, oh, Princess Leia, that's so unusual that a girl is a badass. It was just a badass character.
Yeah, it worked.
She's one of the most badass women in all of sci-fi, fantasy. You know, maybe even extending over into horror necessarily. You know, she's certainly on par with Ellen Ripley, with Sarah Connor, with Dana Scully. You know, because I'm getting into TV now, so I'm branching out a little far, but. Certainly one of the great badasses, and a hottie. She was a hottie, man.
And they did it again. They did it again with Rogue One. I don't know how they that passed muster, but they had a character in Jyn Erso that was just a badass.
Yeah,
that wasn't a Mary Jane, and just was a fantastic character. Of course, she gets killed at the end.
Yeah.
But see, the thing about Leia is Carrie Fisher brought that. That was her personal attitude. She gave no shits. She wouldn't take anything from a man, which is why it's perfect when you learn how Carrie Fisher was as a woman. You would believe that if, let's just say, she is Princess Leia, she would be saving Han and Luke's butts. She would be ordering them around. She would be talking shit to Chewbacca, a thing that's, a foot taller than her with fangs and is covered in hair. She showed no fear. What did she say? Get this walking carpet out of my way. Stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
And that was perfect casting with Carrie Fisher.
Yeah, who we had never seen before, or I had never seen before. I mean, I was 9, so
yeah, because this was before Blues Brothers. Yep.
Oh,
yeah. So I had no idea who this was. Automatically you can see the push and pull with Han Solo, where he gets off some great lines. Well, they're going to kill her. And he's like, better her than me.
Yeah.
There's no way you're going to get him to do it. And then Luke's like, she's rich.
But she's rich. How rich? Exactly.
The perfect love triangle of, is this tough broad going to go with the smuggler, or the innocent kid, because we had no idea they were siblings at that point.
Yeah.
Aren't you a little short for a stormtrooper? Those little lines are just classic.
Oh yeah, I mean, almost immediately she's giving Han Solo shit, and he's like, "No reward is worth this."
Yes,
I mean, it's just that Lucas wrote this, and he did, right? This is Lucas's writing. I mean, this is just a masterpiece in storytelling. It's got just so many great things. You've got this, this budding romance that's going on. You've got rescues, and you've got. I mean, it's fantastic. It really is. It's one of the great all-time sci-fi movies. I mean,
and one thing I like about the fact that he started this, film-wise in the middle, is like I keep bringing up, is the mystery. We know nothing about the Clone Wars.
Right.
Who the fuck is Obi-Wan Kenobi? You know what I mean? People think he's just he's just the old hermit that lives in the desert. He's fought in a war, regardless, Clone Wars or whatever, and Princess Leia knows it, because he helped her father.
Yep.
He the first time you ever see him actually do something other than rescue Luke, he cuts off a creature's arm in the cantina. You know what I mean?
Mystery samurai who comes out.
Exactly. Who is he? What backstory? I love how he's training Luke on the Force, like just the Jedi mind trick. These aren't the droids you're looking for, and he does it like it's nothing. That's what's so cool. The mystery, and that's what I think is cool. How like I said, Lucas starting this at episode 4 because we don't know what he's done,
and the balls it takes, because we don't know, to kill him, kill him off.
You're right.
You know, to kill
No,
the
he
most
was bringing
badass
back-
character in the movie, you know, maybe short of Vader,
Mhm.
and he just gets smoked.
Yep.
And he
You
lets it happen too.
Kind of, sort of, but I mean, you know, like when they're fighting, and if I did have a complaint in the movie, looking back on it now, it's that fight scene is a little lame, but okay.
But you
Because
got to
that's
imagine,
what,
it's two
that's
old
what you
men,
got at the
two men
time.
in the 60s trying to fight.
But yeah, we didn't know that, and
Perfectly.
we just didn't know that at the time, and you know, he's fast, and then he's not fast, but whatever.
Right. I
You
mean,
know,
we're spoiled
I don't
that
want
they
to
had
pick
Ray
Matt.
Park. We're spoiled that they had Ray Park be Darth Maul, and they had all this great choreography in the
Yeah,
prequels.
great martial arts. Yeah, he
And
was.
now
He
we
was the.
expect all these fantastic. I don't think they had the budget to do any kind of samurai training. They were just like wave the sword around, you know?
Hit somebody, hit something. All right, just act like you're gonna hit something. You know, like Clint Eastwood, $1 Million Baby. Get in a fighting stance. Act like you're gonna hit something. So, I mean, it was just. I was shocked when he died. I couldn't believe it, you know. But Vader does say, you know, your powers are gotten weak, old man, and what you realize is that this is essentially like he's come back for one last hurrah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's not. He probably has a sense that he's not going to make it. You know that Vader is going to smoke him. But it's just. I mean, that's very ballsy. I mean, by far, you thought you figure Solo wouldn't make it, or maybe Luke or something like that, or you figure he'd beat Vader.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
the thing I never understood though is we've seen and we're not talking about prequels or the Disney trilogy or whatever. We've seen people taken out by lightsabers and they don't disappear. I've never understood how he was able to disappear, and it also confuses Vader too. Because he sticks his foot on the rope and he's like moving it around, like where the fuck did this guy go? I never understood how that happened.
I just always thought it was some superior sort of Jedi trick. I mean, it's kind of drawing from the Bible where Jesus ascends into heaven bodily. It's the same kind of thing. It's like he's doing something that no one else does after he sacrifices himself.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
I mean, as far as wrapping up the second act, that sacrifice is the best way to do it, because then it sets up. Now we have to fight this against all odds, and there's a sort of we got to do it for him. It's kind of like after Gandalf sacrifices himself fighting the Balrog.
True.
Well, what happens when we get to the Clone Wars? One of the seasons ends where Yoda communicates with Qui-Gon, where Qui-Gon has found a way to communicate from beyond and teaches these things to Yoda. Yoda sends Obi-Wan. I mean, I'm backtracking and sort of hopping and skipping and jumping all over the place, but Yoda sends Obi-Wan to Tatooine saying that Qui-Gon's going to be there to kind of continue your training. So, that's what I'm thinking. At the time, it's a complete fucking mystery. Yeah, and it probably is very much like, what Bill is talking about. But I think that might be, maybe I'm just, sort of, lick spittling, everything together here, that kind of thing. But,
you gotta remember, we never saw a Jedi Knight die. That's the first time you saw a Jedi Knight get killed. Right? So you have no idea. Do all of them disappear when they die? Are they different? Are they a different breed? Again, with the mystery, just like you're saying, Eric, it's all this stuff that we filled in our heads.
So that brings us to the air battle for the Death Star. The Death Star was pretty badass. Moff Tarkin used it to great effect to, I think the princess still held out on him. But he was such an evil bastard, he blew up Alderaan anyway.
Yep.
Because he's Peter Cushing, and much more Dr. Frankenstein Peter Cushing than Van Helsing Peter Cushing, and it was great to see him in Rogue One again. But I mean, essentially what they're going on is a fucking suicide mission. And I sort of equated it to like having to drive a car in between an alley to hit like a trash can lid or something like that, going at top speed. It's insane. One of the things,
the impossible target.
Yeah, and it's just on top of that, you're being shot at. And one of the things I still love to this day of the design of these TIE fighters.
Yep.
They are just intimidating as hell. They just look like these giant sort of space insects or something like that. And they just look like they're ready to blow you out of the sky. And thank God the pilots are better shots than the stormtroopers because, these pilots actually hit people.
I love the design of Vader's, how his has like the curved in wings.
Yep.
Yeah. You've got an air war here. I thought it was kind of cool how the pilots, don't look like pilots would today necessarily, or action people would today.
Yeah.
They're like the one guy's fat and like, he's, and
they had the name of
sideburns and they're
Porkins of all
sloppy.
things.
Yeah, they're, sloppy looking
It's the rebels, they're the scrappy,
they're
amateurs.
Everyday schlub, they pull off the streets.
Because essentially Luke's like a farm boy. He's had no formal training, but they're throwing him up there. They're like, hey man, we need every person that we can put in a seat that can fly, and is willing to do it, get up there and give it a shot. And it's a pretty damn impressive space battle, even by today's standards. A lot of suspense. You're watching, the team just slowly get eradicated.
Yep.
And Vader's going in there with his two side people, and they've got those black uniforms like Vader, and they look especially intimidating.
Yeah.
And you're like, shit, man, this is fantastic stuff. I mean, for 45 years later, you can't always say that about a lot of movies.
Right.
Yeah.
I could sit and watch it over and over again. I've watched that movie every Thanksgiving since I was a kid. I just never get tired of it. It's so well done.
Here's the thing, though. Maybe they gave more of it. Well, clearly we've been talking about this all along. Maybe they gave more of a shit 45 years ago than they do today.
Yeah, well, and Lucas, I don't know too much of the backstory, but Lucas had it all on the line with this one. I think he was damn near broke during the making of this. I think he was going through a divorce and a real bad divorce, and if this failed, he'd be a goner.
But I mean, just think about how many quality movies came out of the 70s.
Yeah, well, it's that generation of directors who were just making their mark. They're moving so far away from the schlock of the 60s and making great films, regardless of anything that the studio said. Because at the same time this is going on with Lucas, you had Francis Ford Coppola out in Thailand, killing himself trying to get Apocalypse Now together.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys are difficult artists.
Yeah, Martin Sheen had a fucking heart attack doing that.
There you go.
You've got Spielberg making Jaws. You've got Ridley Scott making Alien.
Exactly.
You've got Coppola years before that making The Godfather 1 and 2.
Yeah. Look at the backstory of what Stallone had to do just to get Rocky sold.
Exactly. Yeah. That's exactly correct.
We've got Stallone with Rocky. We've got Friedkin. 3 in a row. The Exorcist, The French Connection 1 and 2. And what was that other one he did? The fourth movie he did. It's the 70s are kind of an underrated time. I mean, you may pick individual movies, but I mean, that was just they were just powerhouses, man. And it just seemed like these people were at the height of their powers.
Yeah.
Ridley Scott.
I get the feeling that a lot of these guys were still fighting against the system to tell stories that no one else would, where 10 years later, 15 years later, they all got subsumed into the machine and they started churning out stuff and sort of hand in glove with the studio system until you had the Tarantinos and the Kevin Smiths and the
Spike Lee's and the
School Days and all that, where that cycle started up again.
Well, I'm sure after a year, and it's something that anyone would go for after years and years and a decade of fighting people. Suddenly, they're throwing every dollar that you could ask for at you, and you would probably do it too. I probably would too.
Yeah.
Fuck. Okay. Yeah. Great. You're going to give me everything I want. Okay. I'll compromise a little with you on here, but
I don't fault them for it, but we went through that. And the whole time that was happening, what was the big underground thing was horror movies, because they were independents for the most part. They were fighting against all odds. They were unknown casts, limited budgets, And those movies turned out to be really, really good. There was a lot of great gems that were made under the radar while these big studio films were being made by the Spielbergs and the Lucases and the Coppolas.
Yeah. I mean, look at the difference between Terminator and Terminator 2.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly, they were throwing every conceivable fucking dollar that they could.
Yes.
Look at the difference between Alien and Aliens.
Yep.
Right.
Holy shit. I mean, it's just, I'm not knocking either of those movies, any of those 4 movies. I mean, they're all fucking top of the line, goats. But I mean, you can clearly see that, there's a lot of money involved in, making these sequels. Clearly there's we're friends now, take all the money that you need and go make this movie. Probably between here and Empire, by then they're just this is the movie you're making. Okay, well, you can have pretty much kind of whatever you want, but the vision still remains gritty and brutal. And by the time you get to that second movie is just like one for the ages, man.
Yes.
I think it's the best movie of all of them.
Return of the Jedi, Lucas has fully gone over to, this is for 12-year-olds. Let's have a bunch of creatures, cute
coloring
creatures.
books.
It's not as bad as it would become, but it is totally, like, you can see the difference between Empire and Return of the Jedi. It's clear.
Yeah. There's I'm reminded at the end when they're at the big celebration party of that scene at the end of Caddyshack where Rodney Dangerfield yells, "Hey, everybody, we're all going to get laid." Because like everybody's in that big celebratory mood, and that kind of, and everybody's like looking at everybody else and smiling, and you're like, oh God.
Talk about a movie that almost didn't get made. Jesus, Caddyshack. If there was a horror movie, we could review it. That one.
The production hell. Jesus Christ. Yeah, it's
so the Death Star blows up. Now what?
Nothing. I mean, that's kind of it. They're giving Han shit. Han helped them, saved his life. He agreed on a price. They promised him this. He gets the money, and then they call him a dickhead because he wants to leave.
They give him that guilt trip.
Yeah, and he's just like, these people want to kill me over here, like the ones that I was running away from like a week ago. Remember that, when we were all running for our lives?
And see, that's good storytelling too, because you forget about that with all, because there's no real that much mention of it since he kills Greedo. You forget all about that with everything that's going on until he says, no, he has a reason why he's doing it, because he's got to pay off Jabba the Hutt. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Plus,
you may think it seems, air quotes, dickish, but he's got a bounty on his head.
Well, not to mention the fact it's not necessarily dickish to want to avoid a suicide mission.
Right.
Like, what they're doing really doesn't make all that much sense. I mean, I get it, but I mean, he's been living outside the system his whole life. He really doesn't have any loyalty or affiliation. He's been in it for the money since the beginning of the movie. Yeah, he's a smuggler. And that's what he knows. And actually not paying those people off comes back to bite him in the second movie really fucking hard. So the idealism that sort of wins him over, ends up, shoving a big huge
down on that price. Now he's not only wanted by the biggest crime organization across the galaxy, but now he's wanted by the Empire, the people who run the thing.
Yeah, the fascist fucking government on top of it.
Was the rebels now.
Yeah, he's got
planet.
He's got like 100 friends in the whole fucking universe. And maybe he only had 25 to begin with, but now he's got about 10 billion enemies. He's like poster boy number 1, like on every post office wall. And I mean, in a couple of weeks, we're going to get into Empire. I had no idea that they were going to go that dark.
Yes.
That is one cool hero's return for Han, because you already have the space battle going on. You have the intensity of Luke trying to shoot the plasma grenades or whatever. Vader's on his ass, and then you have that, he's locked in, the target is locked in, and then boom, out of nowhere, one of his interceptors is shot and blown to hell, and then just like a fucking cowboy out of the old west, he gives a yahoo as loud as he fucking can, and then he gives that cool line, what does it say? Blow this thing so we can all go home.
Yeah.
It's a great out of nowhere moment that a lot of people, if you're not expecting it, it surprises you.
Yes.
Because you think he really did take his money. Like, if you don't know anything about him coming back in Empire or anything like that, you think he took his money and got the fuck out of there.
Yeah, he got out of Dodge because it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't want to fight the whole fucking Empire. No thanks with your 10 people,
Visually, it's great, too, because you see his ship, and there's a sun partially blocked by the ship behind it. It's just so good.
Yeah.
And that's another thing. The Millennium Falcon, man.
It's a piece of junk. Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah,
made the Kessel run in less than 12 parsecs.
Yeah, it's just and it's good because again, Han, he's lived a life, he's been out there. Luke hasn't been off the fucking farm. So I love, how the tension between those two guys again, Luke, he blows up a TIE fighter, whoop-de-fucking-do. He's like, hey, I got it, don't get cocky. I do this every Tuesday, you know what I mean? Yeah. That's what I love about the differences in the, in the characters. That's great fucking writing that I don't think people appreciate so much. Like, that's what I mean is you notice stuff differently as you get older and continue to watch this stuff. It's cool aliens when you're younger and space battles and, lightsabers and stuff like that. But when you grow up and you pay more attention to it, you're like, this is actually really good writing, really good characters, and really good acting.
Yeah, it's very well. Hold on. It's very easy to take it for granted.
Yes.
Now,
it's very easy to take this.
45 years, everyone's stolen from him. At the time, no one had ever done that before. Taken all these tropes and put them together.
Even if you didn't take the tropes together, the things that largely you two have been talking about, I've been talking about the other movies and sort of throwing them in there for context's sake. But I mean, even the things that we've been talking about still hold up with that iceberg analogy. There's a lot of surface things that you could just sort of take for granted. And yes, it's made for lunchboxes and coloring books. But the points that you brought out show, a lot more there. And so even now with this movie, for the first time watcher, there's something there for everyone.
Yep.
That's the good part is they didn't even think they were going to be able to sell toys. That they didn't even have the toys ready by Christmas because no one thought it was going to happen. It wasn't like you got to make this movie so we can sell toys. It was just the movie, and then all of a sudden they're like, "Holy shit, this is popular! Make toys!" And first Christmas they didn't have the toys. They sent you a certificate and said, "Oh, we promise we'll mail you action figures within 6 months. So you'll get it by Easter."
Santa Claus fucked you, yeah. Here's another thing, though. I mean, that was also a time where maybe you didn't value it, but you look back at it now. There was the value of anticipation.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
You had to wait 3 years for the next piece of content.
Mm-hmm.
And you were talking about it, and you're whispering and getting yelled at by your teacher because you're talking with your friend about this, or you're talking about it, or you want to go out in the playground and I want to be Han Solo, or I want to be this, that, and the other, and you just that built up in your mind, and like Bill said, you got out the Fangorias and all the information that you could possibly get. What's the next movie going to be called? And now we're at this point where literally every 6 weeks, Disney is hitting us with something, and you lose, like I said, you lose something in the quality, because it just by even if it was fantastic, by giving you something every 6 weeks, it just becomes diluted.
Yes. Overkill.
Yeah, it's just, it's sensory overload and it's just saturation.
Oversaturation. Yeah, we say that a lot.
It's just,
dude, my friend Mike had to go in the back of a magazine and order 8mm film reel, which had just sort of highlights from Star Wars with no sound. And we projected it on his wall and sat there geeking out because we hadn't seen Star Wars in 2.5 years. And we were like, holy shit, this is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you what, what I had? I had fucking Viewmaster.
Yeah.
Yep, I had Viewmasters, yeah.
Viewmaster, man. And I lived in those fucking slides.
Yep, same here.
Stick that in there and I'm just like, shh. hold on, I got to spin that one back. Did I miss something there in that corner? Was there something there that I didn't see? And yeah, man, that was living back then.
People forget, man, before like 1982, 83, when video cassettes became, available, you saw a movie and it went away.
Yep.
And maybe in 5 years it would come on TV.
I didn't understand the people who told me they went to see it like 10 times. Because these are people that must have lived in cities. Like if you lived in a major metropolitan city or something like that, maybe you could walk down the street. But that wasn't happening. I went in the car with my parents. My parents weren't letting me walk 2 miles down, to go sit in some fucking drive-in by myself, and go see Star Wars. I saw it the one time, and then, like I said, my first indoor movie experience was The Empire Strikes Back, and I went alone with my dad. And I think even he was we never went back to that drive-in again. And I can't remember if it was because it was closed or we just eventually just started, that was just a shift in our thinking as a family. But yeah, man, I mean, there was something to look forward.
Empire twice, and then Return of the Jedi once, and then they were gone. They were nowhere until video cassettes.
Yeah, I would have loved to have been able to, because I wasn't born until 81, so I would have been too young even for Jedi. But I would have loved to have seen these in the movie theater because when I saw them, my dad, he was, God rest him, he was a huge sci-fi nut. Whether it was the B movies from the 50s with Tarantula and all that bullshit, or, This Island Earth, all that stuff, or Close Encounters of the Third Kind. If it was science fiction, he had to have it. And that's where I got Star Wars. He had them recorded off, he had Empire and Jedi recorded off like HBO. He had Star Wars recorded off of like television with like the commercials and everything in it and stuff. So I would have loved to have seen that,
like everybody else. That's exactly
in the
right.
theaters, and then had to have waited 3 years because remember, Vader's still floating out in outer space after the battle and everything. Where the fuck is he going? Who's he going to report to now that everything's blown up?
Was he dead?
Yeah. And then you got the gears turning in your head and creating your own stories. And I would have loved to, as a kid, talking at school, like what's happening, where's he at, who's he going to, is he going to get revenge, is he done? I think that would have been a cool experience.
I turned to the Marvel comics, and boy, did that get kooky. The giant green rabbit guy.
Yeah, I remember some of those comics.
Those were crazy.
What?
Yeah, Marvel put out an adaptation of Star Wars, and then they continued the adventures, and they just got all kinds of wacky. It was insane. Like, has no bounding in any type of canon. Marvel was just like, all right, giant green bunny, why not? Purple guy, why not?
Stanley must have been smoking something really fucking heavy back to him and Jack Kirby.
But it would be interesting if MCU runs out of everything if they went back to those comics and started making some kind of movie with that Star Wars. That would be crazy.
The problem with the MCU is that, and I've said this before, they've killed off their best characters.
Mm-hmm.
And now, instead of, you've killed off the Hulk. I mean, you've made the Hulk smart, which completely destroys the dynamic of the Hulk.
Yeah, you pretty much castrated the Hulk.
Yeah, you've killed Captain America. You kill Steve Rogers. Okay, I don't have any problem with Sam Wilson being Captain America because he's black. I just don't want him to be a lame character.
Mm-hmm.
You've killed off the Black Widow.
Who just got handed the shield. There is no real story there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that could have been it. That's like these fillers in between movies or something like that. But I mean, they've killed off Black Widow. Now, if they were smart, in my mind, you just would have started like a whole new thing. Like you would have started kicking off the X-Men.
Mm-hmm.
Like you would have started. That would have bought you some breathing room to start to develop what to do with these other characters. You would have kicked off the Fantastic Four, Galactus, a Silver Surfer. Who's going to be the next Wolverine? That would have been the way to go. Like you just start to introduce completely organic material. Instead, like we were talking about Black Widow 2 years too late. Shang-Chi, who cares?
Right.
Street level guy. The Eternals.
I think we mentioned it. That's why Rogue One was so good. Is sure you had it was cool. That's how fan service was done perfectly. That Vader scene was awesome. Seeing Leia at the end was awesome. Seeing Grand Moff Tarkin was awesome. But we still had cool characters that had nothing to do with anybody.
Yep.
And that and don't get me wrong, I do like the Disney trilogy for what they are. You know what I mean? But it's just like not everything in this galaxy, has to revolve around these same characters.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There are so many people, so many creatures that we can follow in this galaxy, planets, how, this planet has this many moons, this planet has this many moons, all this stuff, and it always has to revolve around the same family.
It's lazy writing, man. They just don't want to take the time to introduce a character, do proper characterization, create an arc. It's just, oh, we have this girl Rey, and she can do everything. Awesome, let's go.
Yeah, she's flawless from the get-go.
Yeah,
there's no development with her at all. By the end of the second act, she's already taken on Kylo Ren. Of the first movie in the trilogy, she's already taking on Kylo Ren. She's had no training whatsoever. She hasn't even met any Jedi. Because at first I thought it was going to be Finn. And I was like, okay, that's fucking interesting because I like Finn. I like that character.
The concept of a rogue stormtrooper running from the Empire is fantastic. They could have developed that, and it could have been great.
I thought he should have been the lead in the trilogy. I thought, John Boyega should have been the lead in the trilogy, but they went all Mary Jane on us. But I mean, it's just it's too bad. There's a lot that they could be doing, and maybe it's like what you said, Bill, a long time ago. I don't know if it's classic rock.
Yeah.
They're terrified of attempting to try anything that they feel people won't immediately fixate and recognize on.
Exactly.
It's got to be Bruce Springsteen. It's got to be Metallica. It's got to be, and you're going to keep playing the same, like your classic rock station plays the same 200 songs.
Yeah. And then at some point, though, you got to hope at some point the Butthole Surfers are going to come out of nowhere. It's single, and then everyone will, turn around and look at all this back catalog of crazy, insane,
Tejas,
abrasive music.
Yeah, that would, and that's what sort of Rogue One was.
Yeah.
But I think that is part of the problem. These people are terrified to take a chance, and it's funny because they're up $10 billion, and yet they're still anxiety prone,
right?
About introducing new people, which means that the wrong people are in charge.
Yes,
absolutely. You're up $10 billion. You're the second largest franchise in movie history, and you're terrified of getting away. Like when I saw Luke Skywalker enter into the Mandalorian, I swear to God, I came so close to throwing my remote control and breaking my own television. But luckily, that's what I keep socks for. I just
so you can throw the socks.
I throw socks at my own television. God damn it!
It was good though.
I'm like, no, I don't want to see you anymore. Like, stop.
It was okay.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't okay.
Fine.
No, it wasn't fun at all. No. I've had fun before, and that wasn't it. Okay. Now we're all talking about this, but like every other asshole, I'm going to be sitting there watching and waiting and praying for the Obi-Wan Kenobi series because I think that's how they keep drawing us in. They draw us in on our hopes.
Yes.
We're just hoping
one mod teenager in Obi-Wan. I'm going to just throw my socks at the TV because that is good.
But the fact that they got Ewan to return, that's a big coup because you can't go wrong with him no matter what. Well, no matter what you'll say about those prequels, Mike, he was the glue that held them together and made them watchable.
I like Ewan McGregor as much as the next guy. He's a cool character.
He does a good junkie.
Yeah. There's that too. But there were a lot of concept, and there was a concept video that I showed you a bunch of times, Bill. And I'm hoping that that's the Kenobi that we get, and they would have these fan footage from other movies. And I think one where he played Jesus, and he's just kind of wandering in the desert, and he's kind of broken. Obviously Disney's not going to do that,
right?
But Hayden Christensen is coming back. They've got just enough to put the fucking hook in you. and I'm just like,
no
Hey,
Hayden
man.
Christensen. That's gonna suck.
But like I've always said this though, because when we talk horror movies, a lot of things fans hate about horror movies is remakes. I'll say this, even with all this new material that's coming out on Disney Plus, it doesn't tarnish this original trilogy.
Yes.
And that's the thing you can never deny. This like we're specifically talking A New Hope tonight, but no matter what they bring out, like decades, down the line, it won't tarnish this movie because this movie is that fucking good.
Yes.
Let me break it down into a
movie in film school. It's that good. They will teach this movie in film school. It's that good.
They should. If they don't, they should. Let me break it down into a baseball analogy. I would say, and I'm going to be generous here. Maybe I'm not being generous. Maybe I'm just being accurate. I'll say between the entirety, like what I said before, when the lockdown happened, and I had just gotten Disney Plus and went from the Phantom Menace. Actually, I'm lying because the Phantom Menace is so bad I couldn't watch it. I had to start with the Attack of the Clones. I couldn't do it. I couldn't bring myself to do it. I'm like, I can't fucking sit here for 2 hours and watch this shit. I'm going to be in a bad mood.
Attack of the Clones is awful.
Yeah, and because they had also cut off alcohol sales, so there was nothing to drink in my house at the time. And I'm like, I can't get through this without something to drink. So I'm like, fuck this. I'm not doing it. I'm going right to Attack of the Clones. But I went through that all the way through the series, the Clone Wars, Rebels. It took like 6 or 7, or it took maybe a couple of months, but I was in lockdown for like 6 months.
Right.
So, and then I got to movie 9, the Rise of Skywalker. I'm going to say for its entirety, from 1 to 9 and everything in between, I'll say the saga, the franchise is batting 500. Because what Filoni and Favreau did saved and just gave us so much. And because like that 1 through 3 was a Clone Wars trilogy with no fucking Clone War.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'd say the franchise, and I'd like to hear from each of you, I'd say they're batting 500. Now, they're decreasing the numbers with this Disney shit that they're doing now, these constant, but...
You're very generous. I mean, we should do a show where we rank them and justify our rankings, but...
Ryan wouldn't make it through. He would
You're far too generous. The original trilogy, A's all the way around.
Give me a number.
God damn.
Give me a baseball number.
All right, 300.
300. Okay. Yeah. No, there's no wrong answer. There's no wrong answer.
Yeah, that's about fair. I would say 300 because I'm not gonna shit on the first 2 movies of the trilogy as much as I think they should be, because there is some good in there. You just got to literally dig through it to find it. I think Revenge of the Sith, that last 45 minutes saves that movie. I have a lot of fun with it. Yeah. I'll give it that. The original trilogy, and like I said, we talked about how there's a big change in tone by the time they get to Jedi, because like Mike says, lunch boxes and coloring books. It's still really good with the dark stuff. And then the new trilogy, I'm kind of torn because I really like The Last Jedi because it's nothing like what we've seen before, because it's so dark. I don't really give a shit about John Boyega and Rose, saving the fucking animals and all that stuff. I like the Luke stuff. And I just think The Last Jedi was just there
if I could interject for a second. Let me interject this filter for you.
Sure.
Objectively.
Objectively,
what would you say? Objectively.
Okay.
Nobody wants it to do badly.
Right.
Nobody wants to sit there for 6 weeks and watch a shitty Star Wars or an MCU or anything. Like, nobody wants to do that. It can be easy to say that we're just shitting on these movies, but we're giving them our time.
I'm not shitting on them. I'm giving it 100% honest opinion.
Yeah.
Well, honestly, then if I'm doing it objectively, I'm going to agree with Bill. 300.
300.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe I'm just such a huge fucking fan of those 2 animated series. Maybe I'm bolstering them for more than they may actually.
And I've never seen the animated series either. So.
Oh, Jesus, you have to watch those. Do you have Disney?
Sitting through those.
You have what?
I never bothered sitting through those. I've seen episodes here and there, but
holy shit,
Star Wars, those things I've always looked at as they're for kids. And when they turned that into canon, that bothered me. Where they took all this great expanded universe.
You're saying you still haven't seen the Clone Wars yet?
Threw them into the garbage and said, no, this video game and these cartoons, they're canon.
So you haven't seen Filoni or Favreau, what he's done, what you were talking about.
What are you talking about? I'm talking about the Clone Wars.
The animated stuff.
Yeah, that was Filoni. That's what Filoni did.
Yeah, I know. I get it.
You didn't watch it.
I'm not super into it. I didn't sit there and sit all the way through it. I saw the Clone Wars movie. I watched a few episodes of Bad Batch, a few episodes of Rebels, a few episodes of this, that, and the other. But it's not something that captures my attention.
I haven't had that resentment from having the other things cast off and having this added. Looking at it without that factor in mind. Those are fucking 7 stars, man. They're the best. They're the best things that have happened in Star Wars since these 3 movies that we're getting into now. They're 7-star fucking. That is some serious shit.
That's the problem. It shouldn't be. Those things should not be the jewel in the Star Wars crown.
But it is.
Throwaway cartoons.
It is. They're not throwaway cartoons. That's the whole thing. You have to see them to be able to say that. That would be my argument.
I've seen enough that it doesn't capture my attention and force me to,
I've never heard that. But
you're the first Captain, what's his name, is doing.
I never heard that before. Okay, first time.
Well, we've come a long way since the the 80s cartoon droids, though. You got to give it that.
It's not droids. I'll give you that. I mean, the artwork is fantastic. I love Genndy Tartakovsky and that whole almost anime but not anime style.
Mm-hmm.
But the stories just don't grab me.
R2-D2 is the Sith overlord. That jerk has been there since day one.
Yes.
Oh, I just forgot. Everyone was so dumb. Only watched the saga. Okay. So we got random Rick's reviews. Thank you, Rick, for that interjection. Okay. Yeah, I mean, they even fucking redeem. I can't believe I'm going to say this, but there was an episode in there where you're clued into the fact that Jar Jar might be the fucking Sith overlord. And
I've seen that episode.
When he's dealing with Grievous, I almost fell out of my chair. I was laughing so hard because he's just making an ass out of Grievous this whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just, I'm like, maybe he is a fucking Sith Lord. Jesus Christ, look at that. And it's hysterical. Holy shit. So I think that's about as good a place as any to sort of wrap this up for this evening. A spirited conversation about the first. And I think what's important is that what shows through this conversation is that even where we have differences because we give a shit.
Mm-hmm.
So the saga is not throwaway. We may feel this piece here is throwaway and this piece here is discardable, and we may agree on these pieces here that you keep, but we feel that way because we want it to succeed, and we want to see good content, and we want it to be the best that it can be. And so, a lot of the belly aching, or, you can say we're being snobby or anything, but, if something is subpar, we give a shit enough to say so.
Yeah,
that's not a knock.
That's what, in my opinion, like when it comes to like certain YouTubers and stuff or reviewers or however it is, in my opinion, a true fan will take something that they love and they can still knock it off, a point for this, a point for that. They're not going to love it just because it's fucking Star Wars. You know what I mean? Right. They're going to sit there and say, this is great. I think this is fucking stupid. But you know what? That doesn't change the fact that we love this franchise. A true fan will pick apart, like, Elvis didn't have, not every single Elvis song was great. You know what I mean?
Hey man, leave Viva Las Vegas out of that.
They can't all be corkers, but nothing annoys me more than the people who run around saying I'm a real fan because I like everything.
Yeah.
Oh, it's all so good. You're just mindless consuming product. You are not a fan.
There's a lot of content for content's sake, and if you don't, I don't know. Maybe if we had been born 30 years later, we wouldn't necessarily separate the distance. I don't know.
That's true too. It could also be just the generation. You never know.
It's just the generation, and where it's a bad thing to say that's because hierarchies in today's society are looked down upon.
Mm-hmm.
You're not supposed to say that something is bad or that something is better,
mm-hmm.
Or that something is best, because that means it's like a pyramid. If something's up here, then there's a whole lot of other stuff down here. And I was saying this to somebody the other day in a comment section. Like, nobody wants to hear that.
I think me and you, we were talking about elevated horror and stuff,
No. Well, I was having another conversation about elevated horror, and I was saying I think that the term is sort of a term that applies to avoid hierarchies. Now these other movies have a place to go, and so you can't say that this other movie is crappy because it's really not even the same thing. It's something completely different. And I'm like, no, not really. Not really. It's shit.
Micro define things just so that you can separate it from judgment and hierarchy. That's common sense.
Yeah, well, that's content creation nowadays. Empire was right. Jedis just end up crazy on abandoned worlds. Oh, they pretty much say Rey is the effing best at everything she does, like she is a beyonder, for Pete's sake. Yeah, I mean, she's perfect right out of the get-go, and all they needed to do is hand her the lightsaber, because Luke really didn't teach her all that much in the second movie. Right. We should eventually, at some point, we should get to the other trilogy, but I feel it's just going to be a huge defecation. It's going to be like the largest, and so maybe there's not a point to that because we already know what we think.
The thing is, it's tween service. It's not fan service. The whole sequel trilogy is all about how young kids know everything and their parents are stupid, and you don't have to listen to them because you already know everything. And this is repeated and repeated and repeated. You see it in the MCU. You see it in every tween sci-fi movie. I can't even remember their names. The one with Chloe Moretz fighting aliens, and all the adults are stupid, and she's the only one who knows what she's doing. It's like a whole genre unto itself, where the 12 to 14-year-olds or 16-year-olds, they know everything, and the adults surrounding them are all stupid.
Well, especially now,
infected Star Wars.
It's in the. I mean, it's infected everything, and especially with your female leads. They can do pretty much everything nowadays. So and nobody else can. They're just stupid. I saw somebody going off about Star Trek and this new show, Discovery, or something like that. With that, I stopped watching it alone. I don't have Paramount now. But anyway, I don't want to start to get into Star Wars.
Yeah. Stop now.
Yeah. This has been a Disney thing forever. The parents are dumb thing. Yeah. Yeah. We can only hope, and I believe that this will happen. I was being a little snide when I talked about throwing sand into the gears. I think the wave eventually will break on this sort of thing because it just, everything does.
It's a cycle.
It'll swing back the other way, and maybe you've got another 10 years of it in the mainstream. We've already got large companies. They're getting bigger, like A24, that are putting out smart, independent movies right now that are hitting like one. A24 has a big fucking catalog. And almost every movie hits it out of the park. You've got people like Eggers, you got people like, Ari Aster, you've got Dennis Villeneuve, who's hitting sci-fi out of the park with like what he did with that Blade Runner sequel, and now, with Dune. So there are people out there that are doing it. Yes, the big Disneys and all these sorts of things are putting out their own crap. You just got to look a little harder, and I guess take these other things with a grain of salt, or not watch them at all. Yeah, I just got into the third episode of Moon Knight, and I'm like, fuck this. This is stupid. I did. I watched it because I had like an hour to kill before the show came on, and I'm like, well, I could read, but I'm like, if I start reading, I'm not going to want to stop reading, and then I'm going to have to jump into the stream, and I'm going to be thinking about something else. So I just need something to fill my hour. Oh, I know. There's an MCU show on fucking Disney, and the first episode was okay. And then it started to fall off in the second. By this past time, I'm like, "Fuck this show, man! This just makes no fucking sense." I'm not
exactly.
So now, I can just know I'd pick up a fucking book. All right,
that's a happy note to end on.
Yeah, something. you know something. That's it.
Moon Knight, Mike. Jeez, you're a hater.
You know something that is, don't hesitate. You taught me this a long time ago, Bill. I forget what book I was. It was like 20 years ago. I was reading this fucking book, and every page was like being neck deep in fucking mud.
Oh, yeah, I remember this.
And you're like, throw that fucking thing against the wall, man. And you're like, life's too short.
Mm-hmm.
So if you find that
Gatsby, that thing was a piece of shit. I don't know why they teach it in school. That book sucked. And I will not stop saying it over and over again.
It's not good. It's not good. But that wasn't the book.
Thing against the wall, and I suggest everyone do the same. Why waste your time?
Now, this isn't the first stream that I've heard you say that either.
Yeah, well, Bill was the one who told me like 20 years. Like, throw that fucking thing against the wall. He's like, just don't waste your time. And you know something? That's okay. If you're not fucking enjoying something, just turn it the fuck off.
Yep.
Watch something else. Crack a book. Talk to somebody. I mean, we're here in the virtual reality right now, and we're podcasting. But I get it. But you know something? Like today, it's just right before I fuck this series. I'm not watching this anymore. And there are a lot of the MCU. Like, I haven't watched an MCU movie since Endgame.
Wow.
I haven't watched Shang-Chi. I haven't watched The Eternals. I haven't watched Black Widow.
Yeah.
I just like, I'm at the age now where I can look at something and be 90% sure whether I will or will not like something and be right.
Right.
So I'm just like, nah, I ain't doing that. And so, I've tried a couple of the WandaVision. It was a piece of shit. And now I'm just, what was it? The other one, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. No, I didn't watch Loki. I didn't watch
Winter
that.
Soldier was trash.
Yeah, I fucking hated Hawkeye and what they did to Vincent D'Onofrio in there. So now I'm just like, yeah, fuck this, man. So yeah, it's okay not to watch shit.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Absolutely.
okay. Yeah. They should let you, Bull, make the next Star Wars.
I would go see that. Just out of curiosity alone.
I was like, yeah, I'm done. Yeah, I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
I want Eggers to make a Star Wars movie. God damn it.
Dude, did you hear this thing about fucking Eggers was saying, because there's been the internet rumors about Defoe playing Count Orlok in the new Nosferatu.
Yes.
But now I saw this thing today, and they're like, even Eggers isn't sure if it's going to happen. That's like fucking Eggers, Defoe, Nosferatu is like the story of Icarus.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's just flying too high. He's flying too close to the fucking sun here. Let's get. To me, that's up there with Daniel Day-Lewis playing Batman. It's just like, it's never going to fucking happen. So I mean, I guess we'll see. All right, I think that that's as good a place as any for the third time. To bring
you sure?
This to a close. Yeah. I don't know. No, not really. But I'm just going to keep trying until. Yeah, we just keep talking about other shit. But I don't consider that to be a bad thing.
Nope.
Hey, I gotta go to bed. God damn it.
Yeah, that's right. You guys are among the ranks of the employed. Man, talk about a spot on Nosferatu. Yeah. My thanks to Bill B1 Kenobi for stopping in to shoot the shit. And for Eric. Hey, Internet Eric here. We will be back in the live stream, I think, 2 weeks from today or 2 weeks from tomorrow with The Empire Strikes Back. Next week will be pre-recorded content. We're going to cover Arrival. Speaking of fantastic science fiction and Denis Villeneuve, that's as good as it fucking gets. I can't wait to get into that. And then I'm going to do a redo for pre-recorded with Underwater, which I'm looking forward to a lot. So my thanks to everybody for stopping into the stream and for the Agoraphobe who had to bolt out. We'll get him back in here. It's good to have those old people shooting the shit. Yep. And until then, everybody, have a good one.
Cheers.
Don't waste your time with bullshit.